As she's opening her front door, she was shot 7 times. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all doing well. Today's case is going to be a very crazy one. So I found out about this case years ago, and at the time this case was very public and it has to do with a celebrity. So I'm going to be talking today about the case of Shaun Gayle. A lot of you may not know who he is because he was a football player back in the day. Shaun Gayle was born on March 8th, 1962 in Virginia. He played 11 seasons with the Chicago Bears and 1 season with the San Diego Chargers. The Chicago Bears were big at the time. Everyone knew about them. They were doing great. They were winning almost every game. And that means that everyone pretty much knew who Shaun was. Shaun was basically a celebrity. Everyone looked up to him. Everyone was inspired by him. So basically everyone knew who he was. In 1995, Shaun finally retired with football while being with the San Diego Chargers. He then continued his career working as a commentator, and also he dabbled into real estate. In 2000, Shaun Gayle met Rhoni Reuter at a Bears charity event in Wisconsin. They just started talking, hanging out, and eventually dating. Rhoni Reuter was born on September 6, 1965 in Wisconsin. She was very much into fashion and she worked at Macy's in her city. Everyone describes Rhoni as being a very loving and friendly person. She was able to make people smile all the time, and she basically became friends with everybody that she met. Since they met, Shaun and Rhoni pretty much dated on and off for about 17 to 18 years. They did not live together, they did not share a house together, but they were romantically involved for a very long time. In 2007, Rhoni was 41 years old and she gets the unexpected news that she's finally pregnant. This was Rhoni's first child and she was so excited, she was so happy, and she could not wait to have her baby in her arms. At this point, Rhoni could not wait to have a family. I mean, everyone around her already did, and she was already 41 at this point, so she was just so excited to finally start this new chapter in her life. When Rhoni tells Shaun that she was pregnant and she was having their child, he was not as excited. The news of having a baby girl on the way seemed more of a burden to Shaun than anything. Rhoni told Shaun that even if he was not happy about the news and having this baby girl, she was still going to move forward and have her, regardless of what he thought. Eventually, Shaun warmed up to the idea and he slowly became very excited. He even started buying a lot of baby books, and that showed Rhoni that he was genuinely as excited as her for their baby girl's arrival. Even though Rhoni and Shaun both lived separate lives, they both started preparing for their baby girl's arrival and started buying everything that they needed. On October 4th, 2007, Rhoni at this point is 7 months pregnant. She gets up like any other day. It's a little bit before 8 a.m. and Rhoni is heading out the door to go to work. As she's opening her front door, she was shot 7 times. Rhoni was shot so violently that she was pushed back into her apartment. Rhoni and her unborn baby were instantly killed. Like I mentioned, Rhoni was shot 7 times. The 2 first shots were directly at her stomach, which made investigators believe that this was targeted to her unborn baby. Rhoni lived in an apartment where she had neighbors who lived directly downstairs from her. When she was shot, her neighbors heard pretty much everything. They heard Rhoni scream and they heard the sound of the gunshots. The neighbor describes these gunshots being muffled, and she actually mentioned that she realized it was a silencer. The neighbor was aware that Rhoni was pregnant, so she instantly called her, but obviously Rhoni did not answer. Since the neighbor did not receive a response from Rhoni, she instantly called the police and reported what she had heard. Like I mentioned earlier, the first shots were aimed at Rhoni's stomach, targeting her baby. And while that was happening, investigators said that Rhoni was actually trying to protect her stomach by covering her stomach with her arms. That's why she had a lot of bullets actually go through her arms. The last bullet actually went through Rhoni's head, and while investigators were looking at this crime scene, they noticed how cold-blooded and how personal this crime was. Guys, while reading about this case and watching videos, this case really made my blood boil, because how can someone just be so heartless to hurt someone else while they are pregnant? I mean, you should not be killing anyone at any point, but the fact that Rhoni was pregnant, it makes me a lot more angry, because this poor baby did not even get to live, and she wasn't even born. She was just 2 months away from being born. So I don't know, it's just so devastating and it's so sad. While investigators were asking questions to anyone who saw something in the neighborhood, witnesses actually said that they saw someone running across the street after the shooting happened. Another witness said that they saw a very small person running across the street with a disguise and dark curly hair. Other people were saying that they saw a black car leaving the scene after the shooting. So there pretty much were a lot of witnesses who saw something suspicious that morning. And the person who did this to Rhoni pretty much messed up, because why would you go and shoot someone in broad daylight right in the morning when everyone is going to work or going to school? When police were investigating the crime scene, they knew they had to call Shaun and pretty much tell him what had happened. Before police can get to Shaun actually called police and asked them, hey, what happened with Rhoni? Is Rhoni okay? Because at that point, people and the media were already contacting Shaun and pretty much telling him that there was somebody or a woman shot where Rhoni lived and she was pregnant. So Shaun just wanted to know if it was Rhoni and if she was okay. Police told Shaun on the phone that yes, it was Rhoni who was shot and she was not okay. Shaun was hysterical. He was crying, he was sobbing, and it was clear that he was upset about the whole situation. The police invited Shaun to go to the station that day and pretty much talk to him and see if, he knew anything. At that point, the police were very suspicious of Shaun because he basically did not seem upset when he arrived to the station, so they thought something was off. It's also known that investigators will always look at the spouse when something like this happens, so they naturally were just looking into Shaun as a prime suspect. Shaun was questioned for about 10 hours at the station, and when they would ask him questions of his whereabouts the day of and the day before, the timelines were a bit off, so police were just very concerned and they were just looking into him a lot more. Shaun had an alibi for the morning of the murder. He said that he woke up very early, he went to work out in the morning, and mid-morning he went to go get a haircut very close to Rhoni's house. Investigators said that even though Shaun did have an alibi, he would have still had enough time to commit the murder in between that time frame. Police wanted to know whether or not Shaun had a motive to kill Rhoni, so they went about asking their family and friends about their relationship and if there was anything strange going on. Rhoni's family and friends actually mentioned to police that Shaun was not very happy about the pregnancy in the beginning. Police took this as a potential motive for Shaun to get rid of Rhoni. As Shaun was continuously questioned by police, Shaun mentions that he was involved with another 18 women besides Rhoni. Shaun explains to investigators that he was involved with these other 18 women throughout a 3-year period. Rhoni's family was actually unaware that Shaun had all of these different relationships. They mentioned that Rhoni would have never allowed this. Rhoni's brother, Rhoni Reuter, actually mentions that Rhoni loved and respected Shaun so much that she would have never allowed this to happen in her relationship, and she would have expected the same respect back from Shaun. Shaun explains that even though his relationship with Rhoni was very close and they were expecting a baby, he said that their relationship was not exclusive and that Rhoni actually knew this. Again, Rhoni's family did not believe this because they would have known if this was the case. Police now start investigating each one of the women that Shaun was involved with, and they start to look into any motive any woman would have had to kill Rhoni. Police ask Shaun who he thinks is responsible for Rhoni's death, and Shaun immediately says Monica Kurowski, which basically was a woman that Shaun was dating the year before. Sometime the year before, Monica and Shaun met. Monica was a trainer as well as a fitness model, and she was very beautiful, very put together, and just very fit. Shaun explains that he dated Monica for about 6 to 7 months until the relationship ended, and when it did end, it ended in horrible terms. Shaun says that Monica began harassing him after a while and that she would come over to his apartment and frantically click the buzzer and just cause a scene in front of all his neighbors. He even said that one day she came to his apartment, looked in through his window, and actually punched his window, which broke his window. Shaun ended up getting an order of protection against Monica, and when police brought Monica in for questioning, she basically told them the story that she was dating Shaun and she one day found out that he was seeing someone else, so she came to his apartment to confront him and talk to him, and in the heat of the moment, while she was knocking on his window, she broke the window. Shaun also tells police that he believes that Monica is the person who has been sending these letters to all of the women he's dated in his life. These letters basically state all of the women that Shaun has been involved with, and the letter says that basically Shaun is playing all of you and he's dating all of you at the same time, kind of just exposing Shaun. One of the letters that Shaun was talking about was actually found in Rhoni's purse the day of the murder. Like I mentioned, all of these letters stated all of the women that Shaun was involved with, and it said their names, their addresses, and their phone numbers. Basically, what this person was trying to do was expose Shaun and let every woman know what he was doing and the fact that he was seeing all of them at the same time. Shaun really thought that these letters were written by Monica, not only because she was harassing him, but also because they were written in broken English. And that's exactly how Monica spoke. She was Polish and she did not speak the best English, so Shaun just thought it would be her. While Monica was questioned over and over again, she really denied writing those letters. She said she had nothing to do with those letters, she had nothing to do with Rhoni's death, and she really insisted on this. No one believed her, everyone thought it was her, and pretty much everyone was convinced that she was the one who murdered Rhoni because she was jealous. After investigating, police found that Monica had a solid alibi. The morning of Rhoni's murder, Monica was actually training a client at the gym, so there was no way that she was training her client as well as murdering Rhoni. At this point, police cleared Monica from writing those letters as well as murdering Rhoni. Rhoni's family as well as investigators were now very confused on who had a motive to kill Rhoni. If it wasn't Monica, then who was it? As police continue to investigate, they start to focus on the fact when neighbors mentioned that the gunshots sounded muffled. This indicated to police that the shots fired were used with a silencer, so basically this murder was planned and it was premeditated. As police continue to look down the list of all the women that Shaun was involved with, they get 3 hot tips to look at this specific woman named Marnie Yang. Marnie Yang was actually one of the women on Shaun's list, and Shaun and her started dating sometime before Rhoni's murder. The time is not very specific. I can't really find when they actually started dating. Marnie Yang was a single mother of 3. She had 2 sons and 1 daughter. She was a real estate agent as well as an aspiring fitness model. Marnie Yang had a very interesting personality. People who knew her said that she was very outspoken and that she had a very aggressive personality. A cop actually came forward and mentioned that he had a relationship with Marnie in the past, and when things ended badly with them two, she had threatened him and his family, so he actually decided to drop everything and move his entire family out of state. Imagine being so scared of someone that you decide to move your entire family and go live somewhere else. Like, I feel like in order to do that, especially being a cop and having that authority and power, for you to do that, you must have been very, very scared. Marnie and Shaun met at a Bears convention, and she was actually working as a security person at the convention when she had access to all of the celebrities during the event. Marnie said that Shaun came up to her and introduced himself, and at the time, Marnie did not know who Shaun was, but during the event, they were constantly bumping into each other, and that's when the topic of real estate came up. And Shaun mentioned to Marnie that he was looking for investment properties. And since Marnie was a real estate agent, she told Shaun that she can help him with that. Rhoni had given Shaun her number, and after the event was over, 2 hours later, Shaun called Rhoni and they made plans to meet in person. Shaun mentions that their relationship at first was very professional, but after a while, it became very friendly. At this point, it's been 2 months since Ronnie's murder, and investigators finally bring in Marnie for questioning. Investigators question Marnie for about an hour and a half, and throughout this whole time, Marnie shows investigators that she is very cooperative and that she just wants to help. As police kept investigating, they started to contact everyone that Marnie knew. And basically everyone said the same thing about Marnie. They said that she was going around telling everyone that she was Shaun's girlfriend. And according to what Shaun said, he was never in a serious relationship with Marnie. So investigators thought that was kind of odd that Marnie was going around telling people something that was not true in terms of the relationship. Like I said, she was pretty much bragging about the relationship to everyone she knew. She wanted everyone to know that she was Shaun's girlfriend. Police wanted to confirm this, so during an interview, police asked Shaun whether Marnie was his girlfriend and if they were actually together and a couple, and Shaun said absolutely not. He said that they were just talking and that pretty much she was just another woman on his list. At this point, police find out that the night before the murder, Marnie was at Shaun's house and they both engaged in sexual relations. Police now issue a search warrant in Shaun's house, and when they went in there to search his stuff and his computer, they actually realized that someone has been hacking into Shaun's emails, his personal information, and just his computer overall. Shaun actually mentioned in the past that he thought somebody was stalking him and looking into his personal information. He just didn't know who it was. Police found this evidence and confirmed that yes, someone is stalking you and has been doing this for quite some time. They knew right away it was Marnie. Marnie was very much stalking Shaun, and she had access to pretty much everything. All of his information, his whereabouts, his emails. She knew everything about him, and that's when police kind of knew. Police started to put the pieces together, and this is when they realized that Marnie was the one who was sending the letters. Remember when we thought it was Monica because Monica spoke with broken English? But it turns out this whole time it was actually Marnie sending out those letters. Marnie was the only one who had access to all of Shaun's information. She knew all of these names of all these different women. She knew their addresses and their phone numbers. Even though Marnie spoke perfect English, she composed these letters in a way where it would frame Monica. She knew that Monica did not speak perfect English, and she wrote these letters in broken English to pin this on Monica. This is actually so crazy how Marnie took the time to study how Monica spoke in order to actually frame this on her. At this point, police knows that Marnie is the one responsible for Ronnie's murder. They start working very closely with Shaun and tell Shaun to wire up and to invite Marnie over and have her confess to the murder. Marnie does not confess to anything. She acts oblivious and she pretends like she has no clue on who committed this murder. Police now begin to search through Marnie's trash, and They found some pretty crazy evidence. They found a bank statement of a purchase at a bookstore, and while investigating a little more, they found out that Marnie actually purchased a book on how to make a disposable silencer. As I mentioned in the beginning, the person who murdered Rhoni used a silencer. There was surveillance footage of Marnie at Home Depot, and it was seen that she was checking out and buying all of the items in order to make the silencer, as well as a bucket and cement. After gathering all of this new evidence, on January 2008, police asked Marnie to come back to the station for more questioning. When police asked Marnie what she was doing the morning of the murder, she said that she was at home with her son, which after questioning her son, he said that was not true and that his mom was not home. When police asked Marnie if she had purchased a book on how to make a silencer, Marnie said she did, but she only did that as a joke. Police also asked Marnie about any guns she owned, and Marnie started listing all the guns that she owned, but she did not mention the 9mm that was used on Rhoni. Police held Marnie for 3 days at the station, but they had to eventually let her go because the evidence just was not enough for an arrest. Police now contacted one of Marnie's closest friends, and her name was Christy Passion. Police were looking into Christy because they wanted to find some evidence on Marnie. Maybe Marnie called Christy and told her something. They just wanted to find some sort of evidence that can incriminate Marnie. As police continued to look into Christy, they found a recorded phone call between Christy and Marnie the day of the murder. A little bit after the murder happened that morning, Marnie called Christy to her work phone, and the first thing she said to her was, "Do you want to go to dinner tonight?" Christy responded with, "Okay, sure." Investigators found the conversation to be very weird because when Marnie called Christy, she did not have any other conversation prior to asking her to go to dinner. So they thought that was weird, but they said, you know what, let's just keep this information. Let's hold on to this recording and we'll see if this makes sense later on in the investigation. Police now found more potential evidence. They found a black car that was on surveillance footage at a gas station, which was leaving the scene right after Rhoni's murder. Like I mentioned earlier, some witnesses said that they saw a black car fleeing the scene after the murder, and police actually looked into this car and they found out that this car was actually rented from a car rental place very near the area, and the name that it was under was Marnie Yang. Even though this car was under Marnie's name, the address that was put on file was Christy's address. Investigators at this point were just very, very confused in a sense because they were recently just looking into Christy and they found, that Marnie and her had been talking after the murder. So seeing that the address was put under Christy's address, it was just a little odd to them. The car also showed that it only had 40 miles driven. So that's the exact distance from the car rental place to Christy Passion's house, to the murder scene, back to Christy Passion's house, and back to the rental place. Police now know that they have to bring in Christy for questioning, and at this point, Christy realizes that she needs to help police and she needs to be cooperative, or else they were going to charge her as a co-conspirator for Rhoni's murder. Christy was done covering for Marnie. She said it was not worth it. She did not want to go to jail and deal with all of that just because Marnie did what she did. Christy told police that the day before the murder, Marnie had gone to Christy's house and told her that she was going to kill Rhoni the next day. She said that she wanted to get rid of Rhoni because she was having a baby with Shaun, and at the time, Marnie was just so in love with Shaun that she didn't want anyone to take him away from her. This is just absolutely crazy. The fact that she did this all because she was jealous and all for a man is just, it's just crazy. Like how desperate and how jealous are you to kill someone else for a man? So you guys remember when I mentioned that police heard the conversation between Christy and Marnie the moment after the murder happened? So basically, Christy admitted that the morning after the murder had happened, Marnie called Christy and told her, do you want to go to dinner? So basically, that was code for if I called you and said, do you want to go to dinner? That means that I pretty much went through with the murder. At this point, police are convinced that Marnie was the one who murdered Rhoni. They know it, they have all the evidence there, but they want to make sure that they have enough evidence for when they take Marnie to trial. Because unfortunately, sometimes if there isn't enough evidence, then you can't really convict someone. So police just wanted to be sure. On March 1st, 2009, at this point, it's been about 2 years since Rhoni's murder, police asked Christy to meet with Marnie at a Denny's and to be wired. They want Christy to bring up the entire murder and to get Marnie to confess. As Christy questioned Marnie, Marnie began to tell her everything. She started telling her what she wore that day and what she did specifically, which technically matched everything that the witnesses saw. Marnie begins to explain everything that happened the day of the murder. She says that she was waiting outside of Rhoni's apartment, and that morning when Rhoni was opening up her front door to go to work, she shot Rhoni 7 times. Marnie also said that Rhoni tried to fight back and protect her stomach, and while being shot at, Rhoni actually tried to kick Marnie, but at that point she was very weak and almost already dead. Marnie also said that most of the shots went to her uterus and her stomach, and the last shot went to her head. After she shot her in the head, she basically closed the door and ran off. The way Marnie describes what happened was just so cold and it was so evil. Like, she didn't even care. The way she was saying everything, it was just like she was just telling a story. On March 2009, police finally had enough evidence to arrest Marnie for Rhoni's murder. When police arrested Marnie and brought her to the station, they started to play the recorded tape of when she confessed to Rhoni's murder. When Marnie heard the entire tape, the only thing she said was that she wanted her attorney. The jury found Marnie Yang guilty of first-degree murder and intentional homicide of an unborn child. Marnie was sentenced to life in prison, but 8 years later, she petitioned that she was wrongfully convicted. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but during the trial, Marnie's daughter was put on the stand, and she did say that her mom did have all of these letters and that she did send them out to all of these women. And basically what Marnie was saying was that her daughter was pressured to say all of this on the stand. Her daughter, Emily, who is now a lot older, says that she remembers investigators telling her to say this, and even though it wasn't what she saw, that she was forced to say this stuff. Marnie's son was also forced to write a statement that his mom was not home during the morning of the murder. Now that he's older as well, he is speaking out and he's saying that they pretty much threatened and forced him to say that in order to convict his mom. Marnie was interviewed 10 years later, and during this interview, Marnie said that she was not the one responsible for Rhoni's murder. She said that the only reason that she confessed to the murder at Denny's was because she wanted to protect her son, which doesn't make sense to me because her son was never a suspect in the murder of Rhoni. So how did she have to protect her son? Let's say that she did confess to this murder in order to protect her son. There is no way that she was able to know all of the details so accurately while she confessed to Christy. Marnie also said that she knew Christy was wired when she came into the Denny's. She said that when Christy walked in, one of the wires actually came out of her shirt, so she already knew. So I really don't think that Marnie is innocent at all. There is just so much evidence pointing at her that she was the one who committed this murder. I think that now that she's been in prison for so long, she feels like she has nothing to lose to fight back and try to clear her name. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen for her. This story is just super devastating and it's so sad, and I really feel for Rhoni's family as well as Shaun, even though I'm not saying Shaun was the reason why all this happened, but I know that he does feel guilty for what happened, and he even said it himself. If he had given Rhoni all of his time and was completely loyal to her, probably none of this would have happened. Anyways, guys, this is pretty much it for today's true crime story. Let me know what you guys think about this story, and let me know in the comments whether you think that Marnie really is the one who committed this murder, or if possibly it was someone else. Maybe Shaun. I don't know. A lot of people were really pointing their fingers at Shaun and really thought Shaun was the one responsible for this, but I honestly think it was just Marnie. Thank you guys so much for watching today's true crime video. Please give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you want to watch more true crime stories. I'm trying to post a video a week, so let me know in the comments what true crime story you guys want to hear, and I'll do my best to report that story. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys in my next. Bye!